Hey, Mama, can I ask you something today? When was the last time that you felt rested? I mean, truly rested in your soul. Not the kind of rest that comes from a nap or a vacation, but the kind of peace that makes you exhale and say, I'm okay now. I don't have to prove anything to anyone today. If you can't remember that particular time, then guess what? You are not alone because there are so many of us where we are operating and we are actually running on empty. We're doing all the things, we're showing up for everyone, we are checking off all the boxes, but yet we're still feeling like, okay, this is still not enough. It's never enough. And that right there is burnout. But here's what I want you to know. What I want you to know is that you don't have to quit everything to heal. You just need to refill right away. You just need to refill right away. So, in this video on today, I'm going to share how to heal from burnout without walking away from your calling. And by the end, you will know the real reason you're running on empty, the three-step process to refill spiritually and emotionally, and even how to find peace again without quitting what matters most. So, stay with me to the end because I believe that God has a word for you on today. Hi, I'm Felicia, and I help faith-filled women move from overwhelm to overflow. Not by doing more, but by aligning their life with God's peace and purpose. And if you have been tired, if you have been living tired, trying to pour constantly from an empty cup, then this message is especially for you. So let's talk about number one, let's talk about how burnout isn't failure, but what it is a signal. Burnout isn't failure, it's a signal. Let's start with this truth. Burnout doesn't mean that you have failed. It just means that you have been faithful. But you've been carrying things that God has never asked you to even carry, to even do. There was definitely a season and seasons in my life where I felt like I was doing everything right on paper. I was serving in the church, in my church home, working hard on my job. I was doing my best to show up for my family, for my children. But inside, let me tell you something. I was completely exhausted. I was completely drained. And not to mention some silent frustration on top of that. So one day, while praying and frustrated and, some tears was flowing, I asked God, I said, why, um, you know, I'm caring more and seems as if it's still not enough. So at that moment, when I asked the question, he said, you're carrying more, and you're carrying more than I have asked you to even carry or for you to even do. And at that moment, I pretty much kind of, you know, stopped in my tracks. And because I began to really realize that I was doing things in my own strength, I was trying to do his work, the work that he has called me to do, but I was trying to do it in my own strength. And this is when burnout happens, when our efforts outrun our intimacy with God. Burnout happens when our own efforts, we're doing it in our own strength, outruns our intimacy with God. Listen, even Jesus, the Son of God, withdrew to rest. In Luke 5 and 16, it reads that it talks about how he took that time to rest. And if he needed time away from the noise to reset, how much more do you think that we need that? So let's dive into, let's talk about number 2 on why you're running on empty. You're not burned out because you are lazy or you're unmotivated. No, that is untruth. But you're burned out because you're running on the wrong source. You're burned out because you're running on the wrong source. We have been taught throughout the years, I'm sure you have as well, I have as well, to just push through. You know, you always hear push through, do more, stay strong, be strong. But strength without surrender always, always leads to exhaustion. Strength without surrender always leads to exhaustion. Burnout often begins when we start believing everything depends on us. And it's so easy for us as moms. We believe that everything depends on us. If we don't do it, it won't get done. How many of you have felt like that? Our kids, the happiness, our homes, the peace in the home, our businesses, our jobs, our ministries, everything, all of it. But this is what the word says. John 15 and 5 says, apart from me, you can do nothing. Jesus is divine and we are the branches in John 15 and 5. And it's so crucial that we stay connected to the vine, because staying connected to the vine, it is our power source. It is our strength. It is where all our nourishment that we need for everything that we need to do. That is where the nourishment comes from, is staying connected to the vine. Because if we don't stay connected, we cannot do these things. We cannot do this in our own strength. So that's not a limitation. It's not a limitation, but I'm going to tell you what it is. It's an invitation. It's an invitation to stop striving and start abiding. It's an invitation to stop striving. Stop striving and start abiding, continuing to abide in the vine. This is how we bear fruit. Not just fruit, but much fruit, showing ourselves to be his disciples. And number 3 is burned out step. When we're talking about burnout, the step number 3 is burnout it's a healing process. Burnout is a healing process. Let's talk about, how do you heal? How do you heal without just getting frustrated and quitting everything? Because I know what you're thinking probably. I just can't walk away from my responsibilities, and definitely not. No, we cannot. We cannot just walk away from our responsibilities. Yes, you're right, but you don't have to. You just have to realign how you are carrying them. Realign how you are carrying your responsibilities. And that is what I want to talk about next, because here are 3 gentle, simple, easy, yet powerful steps to help you to move away from the burnout. So, step 1 is to rest without guilt. Rest isn't lazy. Rest isn't being lazy. When we rest, you're trusting in God enough to stop striving. You remind your soul, God can handle what I can't. He can handle what I can't. So start small. Take 5 minutes of stillness before you check your phone and say a simple prayer. Lord, I'm trusting in you. I'm resting in you on today to handle these things that I cannot handle. Because when you rest, you're not falling behind. You're catching up with God's grace. You're just catching up with God's grace and resting in his grace. Step number 2 in how to realign. Step number 2 in how to realign is to release what's not yours to carry. Ask God, what have you picked up that he never asked you to do? Sometimes burnout isn't from doing bad things. It's from doing a lot of many good things, but maybe just not at the right time. And you may be carrying expectations, you may be carrying fears or burdens that belong in God's hands and not yours, not ours. So write them down one by one and then out loud. Release them at the throne of grace. Release them in prayer. Lord, I give these things back to you, and just watch how the peace of God will begin to fill your space with, fill your space where pressure used to live, where the pressure used to live because it's not there anymore. And step number 3 is to realign your rhythm with God's pace. God's rhythm isn't rushed. He's never in a hurry. God is never in a hurry, but he's always, always on time. So ask him each morning, Lord, what actually matters today? Lord, help me to let your priorities guide my pace on today. And when we do that, we stop living from pressure. We stop living from pressure and start living from peace. And mama, that's where the joy comes back in it. That's where your joy comes back. How many of you out there want your joy back? So let's do a mini reset. Let's pause right here, close your eyes, and just take a deep breath in and just let it all out. You're safe, you're seen, and most of all, you are definitely loved. You don't have to carry everything, and you don't have to fix everything. I'm going to tell you what you have to do, what we need to do. We just need to stay close to the one who can. We need to stay close to the one who can. Also, let's do a recap on what we have learned today. What we have learned today is that burnout isn't failure. It's a signal to realign. You're not burnt out because you are weak, but you're burned out because you have been running on your own strength. And most of all, to heal without quitting, this is what we need to do. We need to rest without guilt. We need to release what's not ours. And we need to realign our rhythms with God's pace. If you have been running on empty, hear this. God isn't disappointed in you. He's inviting you to slow it down a bit, breathe, and remember who your source is. You don't have to quit everything. You just have to let God refill you, because the same hands that called you are the same hands that will carry you. Remember that. You're not behind. You're not being rebuilt. You're not burned out. You're being refined. Let him bring you back to harmony, joy, and peace in his way. If this message spoke to your heart today, would you do three quick things for me? Number 1, like this video. It helps more women to find this encouragement. Number 2, subscribe so that you don't miss next week's message on living with peace and purpose. And number 3, share this with a friend who's been running on empty and let her know she doesn't have to quit everything to find rest again. And if you're ready to take a deeper dive, go deeper, grab your free 7-day devotional on 7 days to flourish in the Word. The link is in the description below. And remember, Mama, you don't have to do it all. You just have to do what God has called you to do and do it with Him. Take a deep breath. You're not running on empty anymore. Thank you so very much for joining me on today, and I look forward to connecting with you on the next video.